Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I just had to go through my phone device storage settings thing because on recent videos that I've recorded, there's a thing at the top of my camera app, and it tells me how long I've been recording, and then a slash, and then how much time I have left to record, which the first time I noticed it, I thought I had not seen that before, but the time left to record was still longer than the videos that I make, so I ignored it. Until tonight, when the time left got down to 7 minutes 30 seconds. So then I realized that I had to stop putting it off and do something about it. Turns out that I had used up all but something crazy, like 3% of the available storage on my device, and I know that it is possible for me to expand my storage on my Android with a micro SD card or something, but I know that there's definitely a lot of stuff on my phone that I don't need, and I know that I'm not really in the mood to fuss with doing all of that. So my phone gave me a bunch of suggestions for duplicate videos, old screenshots, original versions of photos and videos that I've edited, duplicate photos and videos, downloads I'm not using anymore, all that kind of stuff. And it turns out, yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff on this device that I don't use, or that is duplicate, or that I don't even remember having. So I deleted a bunch of stuff, and I went from having 90% storage used to having 23%. And now at the top of the little camera screen, it just tells me that I've been recording for 3 minutes and 37 seconds, and it does not say how much time I have left to record. I got no limits anymore. So that's good. We are in glamorous Cincinnati, Ohio tonight. I kind of fucked up. I could have been off work today, yesterday, and tomorrow. That's what was in my schedule. And I was illegal to pick up somebody's reserve days, and that's what I did. So at my airline, when you're a new flight attendant, you are not on full reserve like you would be at some airlines. You are required to be on reserve for 6 days out of the month. You can either do that in 2 sets of 3 days or in 6 consecutive days. And then seniority rises within your base to the point that you don't have to be on A-days anymore. Like, I think right now only the bottom 23% of our seniority in Minneapolis is required to be on A-days. So if you're higher than 23% in base, then you're not on them. Once your seniority rises to that point, you don't have to do it anymore, which is great. And I've talked about this before, I'm sure. I have not had a reserve requirement for over, like, very close to a year now. I've not had to be on reserve. But much like being on reserve is based on seniority, when you're on reserve, you can put in a bid for the types of trips that you would like them to call you and use you for during your reserve. And those bids are awarded in seniority order. And since it's only applicable to those lower 23 some odd percent of people in base, if somebody who does not have to be on reserve and is at a much higher in base seniority picks up somebody else's reserve days and then puts in a bid for a trip, they would be awarded their preference before anybody else. So, I know I talk about how I don't really fly international super often yet, because when you hold a trip on your line, if you're a line holder as we call it, that means the trip is awarded to you in your monthly schedule. That's your line. Your line and reserve are two separate things. Trips on your line you can also bid for, but you're bidding against everybody in base, the full 100% of us, not just the lower 20 some odd percent that are on reserve requirement. So I always put international trips in my monthly line bid, but since I'm still low seniority compared to the entire base of Minneapolis, I do not hold international trips on my line, nor do I hold the really, like, high ticket domestics. For example, Honolulu. There are exceptions to that. For example, I do not ever ask for holidays off because I don't really care. I want the holiday pay, and since I don't live in the same state as my family anymore, holidays are even less of a big deal than they were before. So sometimes on holidays I'll get the good trips because asking to not work on a holiday is also awarded in seniority order. So the only people that can really get awarded their bid to not work on, like, Thanksgiving and Christmas are the same kind of senior people that normally line hold the high ticket domestic, international, and transoceanic trips. See what I'm saying? So, like, last Thanksgiving I worked and I was given Honolulu on my line without asking for it. So occasionally that's how I'll catch a bone, right? But like I said, when you're on reserve, your reserve preference bid preferences are awarded on seniority order, but you're only fighting against the rest of the 23%-ish lowest seniority people in base. So, for like the last couple of months that I had a reserve requirement, I was one of the most senior people who had to have a reserve responsibility. So I would bid for something called the Q position, which I think I've explained before, but a Q position is when an additional flight attendant or flight attendants are needed above the minimum crew. Because all of our flights are operated with minimum crew, but the FAA says you have to have X number of flight attendants for X number of people. So if we actually completely sell out a flight, or sell it above the threshold that you can have the minimum crew only, then you'll need additional flight attendants. Those are called Q positions. And the reason why line holders do not have Q positions on their line, it's because we usually meet that threshold like the day before or the day of flight departure. So then it goes to the people who are on reserve for specifically those kind of instances. So when I was very senior on reserve and I bid for Q positions for international and transoceanic trips, there reached a point that I would get it every single time I asked for it. And I have not picked up anybody's reserve days in a while because I typically don't take or have 4 days off in a row. You need there to be 4 days off in a row because your reserve requirement begins at midnight on day 1 and ends at midnight on day 3. And in order to be legal for that, you have to have 11 hours before and 11 hours after, because that's your legal minimum rest. Anyway, I had it in my mind that next time I had enough days for it to be legal, then I would pick up somebody's A days to see if I could still hold the Q position. Because especially getting into summer flying, we'll be operating more TOs, more fun trips. But also, we operate just a lot more trips in general. A lot more things can go wrong. For example, Minneapolis Airport is going to be going under tarmac construction at the end of this month, so we'll have a reduced number of runways. That's going to cause problems. More flying means potentially more maintenance issues, different kinds of delays, people calling out sick more, taking vacations, taking personal leave, yada yada yada. There's a lot of reasons why there is a higher demand for working flight attendants during the high seasons, and we are right on the cusp of summer, so I figured now would be a good time to try to pick up somebody's A days to find out if me being very high seniority for a reserve person can outbid just the general need that there is for flight attendants during this time, if that makes sense. So I picked up somebody's A days, and I was hoping that I would either win my bid for an international or transoceanic trip, or if there were none matching my bids, or somebody else higher seniority won the one that I was bidding for, they would just simply not use me, because that is also possible. Sometimes people of higher seniority will pick up A days and then make no bids, because since they're higher seniority, they would be the last person to get called if they did not bid to be worked. And then when you're on reserve, you still get paid. Not a full, 8 hours pay, but you get paid. I think it's you get paid an hour for every 2 hours that you sit on reserve. So, if you want to not work and your seniority is high enough that you're confident that you will not be worked, then it's a nice way to just kind of be at home getting some chores done or whatever while still making money. So I picked up the reserve days, hoping that if I didn't get my bid, or if there were no trips that matched my bid, I would just not be worked, and then I could make a bit of money doing the chores that I have been and still did put off doing. But since we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, I think that you can piece together that that is not how it happened for me. Yeah, I did not win my bid, and I also got used for a 3-day domestic trip, which tells me that my seniority is not high enough, probably, that picking up 8 days will go to plan or to how I would like it to during the summer. It would still work for me on low seasons, but in the summer, if my real objective is to either go international or not go at all, 8 days are probably not the way to go. It would be better suited for me to bid for days off and then pick up trips out of bases that fly more internationally, like New York. That's gonna be the way to go for summer if I want to have a fun trip. But that's okay, because now I know it's better to test it now than test it in the heights of summer, because this has still been a pretty routine trip. We had a very short maintenance related delay leaving Salt Lake on our way to Cincinnati today, and there's been some significantly moderate turbulence pretty much everywhere that I've been flying in the past week, significant enough that we have to modify what we do on board for safety reasons, precautionary reasons, but all of that is very, very normal, and I have a very, very awesome crew flying with great people, so, and it's a decently high credit trip, sometimes with 3 days. If your layovers are long and your flight hours are low, then it kind of feels like the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I've really gotten into the habit of working turns and leanovers, which are kind of hellish on your body if you flip-flop back and forth between daytime flying and red-eye flying. But if that's kind of all you do and you just settle into a groove and commit to being nocturnal for a stretch, then it's not so bad, and you also make good money doing that because you can stack them on up. You don't really have to be concerned for your legalities, because if it starts late at night and ends early morning the next day, there's very few situations where your minimum rest is not built in between trips. And if it's a turn, there's no layover, it's all flight pay, and if it's a leanover, it's very minimal layover pay, and it's mostly still flight pay, so it's for the amount of time you're away from home, most of it is high pay. It's a lot of things to consider when you're building your schedule and figuring out what kind of flying you like to do. But I'm glad this is day 2 of the 3. Last night we were in Spokane, Washington, and I had not slept for like over 30 hours before I got to our hotel. So I was kind of fighting for my life. And the layovers on this trip aren't long, like they're not full day layovers, but they're on the medium side. I think that we had 15 hours on the ground in Spokane yesterday, so once you factored out the drive to and from the hotel, taking a shower and getting ready, the amount of time that I had left was a little over 13 hours, and I slept the whole time, and I only woke up once. That's how tired I am. I had 13 hours to use for sleep, and I used all of them. I only woke up one time for like 15 seconds. And I was sleeping hard too, because when I woke up, waking up unprompted as a flight attendant becomes a panic-inducing experience, because if you wake up and there's no alarm pounding and the room is pitch black, immediately you're like, holy shit, where am I? And did I miss my alarm? Did I miss my shuttle? Immediately you think, I'm on duty right now. I don't know what city I'm in. I've overslept my alarm. I'm gonna lose my job. Those are the 4 thoughts that you have whenever you wake up naturally. After you become a flight attendant, it does not matter if you are on a layover, or if you're in your own bed, or if you've been off for 5 days, or if you're on vacation. If you wake up unplanned, you are panicking. So I woke up at like 7 p.m. Immediately panicked, had those 4 thoughts, looked at my phone, realized it was 7 p.m., remembered that I didn't have to be up until like 3:50 a.m. And however long it took me to have all those realizations and put my phone back down, immediately I was asleep again. So I slept good, I slept hard, and I slept long. It was so good. It was so good. And it's a pretty easy trip too. It's only 2 legs each day. My favorite trip structure on a 3-day trip is a 3-2-1. 3 flights the first day, 2 on the second, 1 on the last. But a 2-2-2 is great. Take a 2-2-2 all day. And tomorrow is my final day. I have like 13 hours on the ground here in Ohio. And I've just been relaxing, because after this I go straight back into overnight flying consecutively until Tuesday. So I'm gonna need to front load my sleep to ease the transition back into being nocturnal for the upcoming couple of days. So I've just been relaxing, and after this I'm going to go to sleep again. And then my last 2 flights tomorrow are from here to Denver, and then from Denver back to Minneapolis. So I think that's like, I don't know, it's over 1,000 miles, but it's less than 1,500. 1,500 is the threshold where we start having to do 2 services. So it's a full service with coffee, water, walks, but not a second service. So I think it's like 1,100 miles. And then Denver to MSP is like 6 something, which is a single service, no walks. And they feed me on the first flight. I get a hot crew meal, which is nice because I'm already hungry. I had a hot crew meal on my second leg of the day from Salt Lake. So it's super nice that they feed me because I do not meal prep. I'm too lazy. But I'm already thinking about my breakfast because I'm hungry. And the best way that I can think to get to breakfast faster is to go to sleep now. So I think I'm gonna do that. One thing I will say is I feel motivated to figure out filming at home